With all the erratic weather that we've been having, lost a juniper bonsai. So effectively what we're going to be doing is cleaning this pot out, and I've got a bit of driftwood. It's an interesting piece of driftwood with a curl that I thought might look good with some cherry blossom coming off it and styled. So not something I've done before, but we're going to give this a go and we'll see what we end up with. So first and foremost, I've got these bits of cherry blossom which have sprung up out of one of my pots that has an older cherry in it, and these have just struck up as runners. So we've got a couple of nice size ones that I've just been letting grow, thinking that I might do something like this with them, but didn't have a reasonable piece of driftwood or anything to do it with, so I've been keeping an eye out, and I come across this piece. Not a massive piece, but very, very dynamic in its shape, and I think it's got a lot of character. So we'll start by stripping out a couple of bits of this cherry and see what we end up with. This one is actually feeling like it's from one piece, which it is. So we might leave that as one piece and let it grow like that. Take a couple of the smaller ones off the bottom. It's got a few runners on that. Basically those two I might take as ideal. We'll strip these other ones off. Now, the thing about this cherry is it's a Japanese cherry. It's not a big tree. It's more of a bush type thing. And it does put out a lot of runners, so there's never any shortage of runners from this thing. It would actually probably make an ideal low hedging plant. So what we've got here, as you can see, I mean, they're just got roots all over them. Every piece I pull off has roots all over them. So they're very easy to strike and do something with. We've got two groups of roots here, one higher, one lower. We might just break that off there. Take that one. So that's actually 4 good sized pieces with a couple of good root balls on them. This one we might just break off there. Possibly just destroyed that one a bit. Unfortunately knocked some roots off the top, but it's still got a nice batch of roots there. That will still grow fine. We'll keep these other bits aside here just in case, and we've got 2 more here we'll have a look at. Just set them aside for the moment. We might utilise them, might not. Depends on how it all turns out. This has got quite a few weeds in it as well. We'll just chuck them in the garden elsewhere. Got a little bit of moss there as well that we might utilise. Might take this one off there. Possibly use that one as well. We'll see. I've actually got a couple more bits of this that are being just in a small pot, and I was actually growing this one, and it broke due to a wattlebird down low. It's just taking off, but it's actually already, even though it's only a small stick, we've got some spring buds coming out, and it's thrown up a whole new runner off the roots. So it'll be interesting to see what that actually comes up like. The intent of that one is just to keep it really small, sort of work on the under 10 centimetre type scenario with it. So we've got plenty of cherry here. I'll just throw these roots away. We don't need those. And we've got what was left of the juniper in the pot. Now this was one that was actually not in a great shape anyway, and it was more about the pot that I picked it up for, and it was starting to come good, and then we had all this weather that was just so erratic. It went from warm to cold to freezing. It was windy. It was just all over the place. Even though the tree was sitting outside, it was getting watered, but it was in the shade, or in cover enough that it wasn't getting drenched by the rainstorms that we had. It didn't survive. There was just too much for it. So essentially what we've got here is the pot, and I'm thinking to bury this tail end. So this tail end piece here is a little bit rough, but I'm thinking that the plant might grow up through here rather nice. So if we buried that and run up from, say, here, and ran it through like it was a live vein and wrapped it through there somehow, I think that'll come up really nice. Now, this might end up kind of choking it, but there's a bit of a gap in the timber that I think it'll actually naturally work through there quite well. And already just doing that, it's seated, and we'll be able to drag that off there and wire that into a nice branch, trim it back, and it should come out well. And we might run another one up on this one, higher up, leave this one just as sort of a broken gin there. So we might actually only use a couple of branches off this, and it may end up looking really good like that. Just not sure how we'll tie this down, but I might put a new piece of wire that's a bit longer than that through there and work from there. But if we take that one, and maybe this one, and whether we can feed that through, I just clean out a little bit of this hole. Might be enough to feed through the roots through there, come through the back without knocking them off. So let's see if we can do that. There's only one point that the roots are really hanging on there. So if we can get them to feed through without knocking them off, that might work well. That's, looks like it's going to go through okay. Yep, we've got those through. We lost a little bit on the way through, but we've got enough. So that'll sit nicely in there. And then we've got a nice piece that we can wrap up around this piece and bring off the other way. So I think this is going to work really well. Better than I was hoping, actually. So just there we've already got what looks like it'll be a great little tanuki. So first time I've ever done this, but so far I'm already happy with the outcome. I'll just grab a larger piece of wire here, a bit more length, a bit more thickness, and this is going to give us strength to hold that piece of flotsam down. I'll just run through the mesh that is in the bottom of the pot. The mesh was actually fine, so we don't need to do anything major about that. Okay, let's whack a little bit of dirt in the pot. Now this isn't anything special. It's not bonsai mix. It's just some potting mix that's been mixed up with other stuff over the years. It come from a Bunnings store originally, and I pulled it out, put some other dirt in it, which gave the juniper a little bit of life. Unfortunately, the weather didn't agree with it, so that unfortunately didn't quite work out as well as I hoped. But this, I think, is going to end up looking pretty good. In fact, if we just run that like that on the angle, oops, this one just dropped back. I think that'll root in nicely. I'll tuck a bit of dirt under this side and that'll hold it up quite well. I'll just tie this down. That's quite solid, that's not going anywhere. Oh, we've got a little cockroach. And they're going to appear being an outside plant. So that's quite nice. I'm actually thinking if we run another smaller one through here to run it out this way, we might use this one, run it down through the same hole. I think there's enough room there to do that. Let's see if we can get roots through on this one as well. Just really gently. Yep, we did get the roots come through on that one as well. So we're doing pretty well here on this. I'll just run that down there straight in. Pull those roots down. And that will sit there and we can bend that straight out. And I think we're going to get a really interesting little item out of this just by doing that simple little process. Now I've just got to get some cutters. Alright, we've got some cutters. We'll just nip this off down the bottom. I love my Leatherman. It's one of my favourite tools. So flexible. And being stainless, nothing's going to hurt it. Okay, just push those wires down out of the way. Just top that up with dirt. I've got to say already I'm really liking how this is coming together. What did I do with that bit of moss? Did I throw it away? Oh, that's big. That was a good little bit of moss, but there'll be others. That's not a major issue. In fact, there's a little bit there. So there's some moss that's actually ended up back in there anyway, so that'll take hold and sprout out and grow and fill this in and make it really come together nicely. Now, like I say, there's nothing special about this dirt. It's just potting mix and sandy soil and stuff that's come out of other pots, but these little cherry trees, they don't need anything special. They will grow in pretty much anything. All they need is something to spread their roots out in. Alright, before we even style it, I think we've got something a bit special there. Not sure what side would look the best. I kind of feel like this should be towards the front, and that gives us a bit of character and more weathered sort of feel to it. So I think that is probably what we want. If we style this one out there, we take this one up a little bit, about halfway, bring it out, see how far we can take this one up. So let's get a little bit of wiring. I've got two more bits of cherry here that we might do something with, or I might just stick in a pot separate and let them do their thing. And a bunch of other little bits of cherry as well, which will probably just end up in the heap, because honestly there's so much of it that comes out. There's not really an issue with how much cherry I have. So we've got a couple of items here that we want to wire up. And I think as far as bracing it, there's not a lot that we really need to do with tying it up. So what we might do is I'll just straighten out the bottom of one of these wires and maybe just poke it down through that hole and bend it around there a little bit, just to give it an anchor point. And then from there, we'll just wrap it around and bring it across. And when we tie on the other piece going up, that should be enough to sort of hold it together. And I don't think I want to cut these off at this point at all. I think just letting them grow and thicken up will be the way to go with this. Right, now that we've got that one in, we run the other one down through that same hole. Anchor it in the same way. And this one I actually want to tie on. So what I'm going to do is actually run this one around the whole thing. And bring it up. At this point, I'm just going to leave all the butts on. I'm not going to strip anything off, because what I want to do is just bring it right to the top. And then we'll just tip off the top separate. And bend that over. They will continue to grow out there, but it might send out a couple of branches that we might utilise. But I just want to let it settle and settle its roots and grow a bit from there. With this one, not really sure what I want to do with this one. Maybe take it off that way. So let's get a strong but short bit of wire. Run that through the back, seat it. Now, I'm just wondering if we just split this off the back a little bit, and that'll give it a better place to seat. Yeah. Okay, now that we've got that, a little bit of moss there that was amongst some root. We'll just pop that in. That'll grow pretty quick. Now, let's find a piece. I've got a heap of wire here that I've used in the past and just wrapped up. I'm going to grab a piece that's probably a little bit thicker than I really need, maybe. Yeah. And we'll just run this through. It's just kind of double up. It's not really doing anything at the bottom structurally, but it's going to help pull this one over. I think knock a couple of buds off by accident, but it'll be alright. Just give it a little bit of shape, a little bit of waviness. Tip it down at the end and we'll just let that do its thing over time and see where that goes. At the moment, it's not about putting too much into it as far as styling is concerned. But we do want to try and get a little bit of shape into it while it's young and flexible. Just to give it a bit of character. And I think we let that grow, and that's going to give it a pretty decent little start. So I'm not sure what this driftwood has come off. I've got no idea what it is, but I think as these grow in and bind themselves a little bit to that shape, they're going to hold it in really well. And with the beautiful cherry blossoms that start to show off this, and yeah, we've got one showing there already at the top, and a few buds here. As that settles in, I think that's going to be a really interesting piece. It's a pity about the juniper, but yeah, it freed up this pot, and made this into something already that, depending on how this goes, I think we'll end up a really unique and beautiful piece. And we've got a couple of cherry blossoms left over that are a decent size that I might do something with. These other ones, they're just scrap ones. I'm just going to chuck those. Like I say, there's plenty more come up where they come from, so there's no problem there. I've got a spare pot here, so what I might do is just clean up the dirt off this bench into this pot, and just whack those in, give them a little bit of shape. And see what we can do with utilising them in the future. I really like the cherry blossom. I think it gives a beautiful burst of colour in the spring. Doesn't necessarily last long, but it is beautifully worth it, just for that splash of bright colour. Got quite a bit of root here. We'll get rid of that. So like I say, there's nothing special here, just the cherry blossom will grow in pretty much anything. I've got a couple of pots here that have some dirt with some attempted strikings that didn't go. I've got some strikings that have done okay, and then some that haven't. So we'll just whack this dirt in, chuck a cherry blossom in each corner, nothing too special. Throw some dirt in on top, and we'll give that a water down. I sort of toyed with the idea of doing some sort of plaiting or something, and then moulding them to get like a ficus type bottom on these. And it's kind of where I was possibly heading with these before I come across this driftwood, and that just instantly, when I saw that driftwood, it was just, this is what I got to do with it. This is where this is going to go. Yeah, I think once that grows in, it's going to be a bit of a special one. In the meantime, we'll just wrap a couple of bits of wire around these other ones, throw a bit of shape into them, and we'll see where they go. Nothing too special, just a standard S shape or something. So I'll just grab a piece of wire that's probably a bit too big for it, whack it down in the pot, wrap it round, and throw some curves on it. and let it grow. Let it settle some roots in. It'll fill the pot with roots pretty quickly. And then we'll come back and we'll look at it next year when it buds again. But for this year, we'll just let it do its thing. Nothing overly special here. Just throw some curves in and see what it ends up like. I'm not even worried about what it looks like too much, just that it's not a straight stick. I'll leave the wires hanging out. The wires can be utilised to shape the end bit if need be, but for now it can just hang out as additional wire. It's not a drama. Now these will shoot in various places on this, and it'll give us something. So quick little bends just to give it something to work with in the future. Nothing special. But a couple of cherry blossoms. We'll see what they end up looking like. As far as the rest of it is concerned, just give the bench a quick clean off, water those in a little bit, and then let them do their thing. Just a quick water of those, let them settle in on the roots. Like I say, nothing too drastic on that. With this one, settled in nicely, and that'll be one that we come back and look a bit closer at in the future. Okay, just as a quick additional, we found a couple of bits of moss, so we've added those on. They should root in pretty well and pretty easy, but that just adds a whole new level of character to this item, and really sets it in well. I reckon that's going to end up lovely. This is a pot that those cherries were pulled from. Like I say, it's just a small bush. It's been shaped a bit. The intent is to air layer this at some point, take some levels off it, and end up with the lower piece. We've got a sacrificial starting to grow out of the side down the bottom here to try and thicken the trunk a bit, and we've got some low branches here that are nice and good and healthy, and the amount of blossoms on that are fantastic. But this will come out looking really fantastic. One other one that I started working on is it's an Italian box thorn. It has been growing in the ground for God knows how many years. It's quite a substantial trunk on the bottom. So it's probably about 20 centimetres across. Low down branch, I'm going to chisel that out at some point. That was growing too close to this upright, so I took that out and let it be. We just potted it, letting it re-establish roots on the bottom and grow a canopy, and then we'll start to trim this back and shape it. Right now, just letting it grow. That's been in this pot for about 2 months, and it's already come out like this. This was completely naked, stripped bare. None of this foliage was on there. It had a couple of buds on the edges, and that was it. There was nothing dramatic about it. Not sure which will be the front yet, but I think it might be the side where I've cut off. Turn that into a bit of a knot to add character, but yeah, wait until it grows out a little bit, then decide what the front is. Try and style it into something that looks good, and put it into a bonsai pot, and I think that'll end up with a nice canopy, and have some nice character about it. It'll look good with a substantial trunk on it. So that one is one that is the type of thing I think is well worth doing. It being an Italian boxthorn, it is considered an invasive species in the area that I'm in. So it should be cut out of the gardens and the surrounds. There's still a few that I have to get rid of, but this is probably the most substantial of what was there. It's been, someone's tried to trim it back and remove it and a couple of times, but they've not had the right tools or strength or inclination to do so. So I've got in with the shovel, axe, everything, dug down around the roots, chopped them off, and then trimmed it back, leaving just a few fibrous roots, and thrown it in the pot just to see if it'll survive. It's taken off. They're a pretty hardy sort of thing. They're hard to kill, but that's part of why they're such an invasive species. They also come out with a berry that once they get in the garden, they will strike up seedlings for years. So it's a constant battle to get rid of them once they're in the garden. And of course, birds taking the berries don't help that situation. But taking it out of that situation, putting it into bonsai really minimises the effects. Of course, having a bonsai where birds can get it if you get the berries on it still has the option of those berries spreading, but they're already out there at this point, so I don't see that as a problem as long as I keep working on my patch and reducing them there and others work on their areas. We should get them under control, and I think given what they are and how they look with the flowers and the berries, they come out with a green flower and then they come out with a red berry. I think they look pretty good, especially around the Christmas time. So that's a new one that we're working on. Just a little bit of added extra for you. So one to keep an eye on as we move forward. Whether you grow from seedling or from a nursery or from the wild, happy hunting.